This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Welcome to Truly Independent. I'm Garrett Batty alongside my co-host Daren Smith. Each week, we'll go in depth with guests, industry experts, and we'll even share our own experiences, all with the goal of demystifying the independent film process. This season, it's all about the script, from the first spark of an idea to a polished final draft, breaking it down for scheduling, budgeting, and ultimately shooting. We'll walk through every step it takes to get from page to production. Welcome to Truly Independent.
Hey, Garrett. How are you?
Good, Darren. Nice to see you. How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's the thing they say about how crazy summer gets when you have kids and everything. It's very true. And
yeah, you've been doing kid stuff. We're starting about 20 minutes late. You've been doing kid stuff today.
Last minute, like, oh, hey, I got to go to In-N-Out Burger because I'm starting paperwork today. I'm like, oh, we better get over there. So let me change everything else on my schedule for the next hour and make that happen.
Because you have nothing else going on.
No, it's fine.
My son is out of town this week, and so it's a preview of empty nester syndrome here. So I got up early. I worked late last night, got up early, and enjoying it.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. We probably could do an episode on scheduling your life as a filmmaker.
Totally unrelated to the film.
But
well, that's not
what we're talking about today.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
We're going to talk about today just these hidden funds. You know, your film is funded until it isn't. And what are these hidden costs that might come up that could really blow up your budget unexpectedly? Hopefully this is helpful to those indie filmmakers that are saying, yeah, I'm going to make this movie for $500 or $500,000, and then it inevitably is going to cost more.
Yeah.
How to budget for that, plan for it, and avoid it when you can.
Inevitably, like there's always more need and then there is budget. I thought I was spot on my first movie and it went over, not because I didn't budget right, but because the needs expanded, the movie expanded. We had more to do, and so we needed more money. And then it happened again on the next movie. And I don't think it happened on Carpenter, but it happened on Faith of Angels, and it's happening on Brotherhood. So like I feel the truth of that inevitable qualifier when we're talking about budget, hidden costs, and the expansion of it. So I'm excited to dive in on this one today.
And it's tough too, because I mean, part of what we talk about is saying, look, if we're good at what we do, if we're good at producing, we're going to be good at managing this. And we don't get to make another film if our previous film either doesn't perform or doesn't deliver on the promises that we make. So part of that is just understanding what promises we're making so that we can make our next film.
Let's dive into it. We got a couple of talking points, and really excited to walk through this. I'm sure you and I will even learn some things from each other because we've experienced this, we've gone through it, we've lived it, and it's something that I think we can help people prepare for rather than avoid. I don't think it's avoidable. I think it's going to happen at some point, and so how do you prepare for it is really the topic today.
Yeah.
So I think we start with this concept of your budget versus your cash flow, because those are two different things. Your budget is a number that you've established as this is what the movie should cost or what we expect it to cost or what we're capping the spend at. Your cash flow is how and when that money that you've raised to pay for your budget comes into your bank account. A lot of times what happens is you'll go out and you'll raise money and you'll get commitments from investors. They'll say, oh yeah, I'll give you $100,000. I'll give you $1 million, whatever it is. Well, that commitment's great. But if you start spending that $1 million before that committed funds is actually in your account, you could get in trouble. We had this happen on Brotherhood where we had committed funds that backed out. And so we ended up with a shortfall that I needed to quickly cover during production, knowing that if we didn't cover it, people weren't going to get paid that week. And that's not a good place to be. So we did the wrong thing on Brotherhood. We got ahead of ourselves and we started developing, and we even went into production without the full budget fully committed into, not committed, but fully raised, fully in our bank account. And I'm still dealing with the ramifications of that decision, even though it's 3 months after we've wrapped the filming.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference there between the committed funds and the money you actually have in the bank account. And just because you said your budget is 2 million, that doesn't mean you have 2 million, right? You can't just go spend unless you know where that money's coming from.
Yeah. And I don't think you'd be a producer without having been through that at least once or or more on projects. That is just part of like that process. The challenge for us that we find is that committed funds, and also film is, the spend is very front heavy, right? You're in development and pre-production and prep and production, and you have to make commitments and reserve locations and pay fees, and even if you're SAG, you got to deposit the entire cast, deposit, and all of that probably much earlier than your investment money is coming in. I know for a movie that we worked on, we had tranches that were coming in every quarter, but the first payment for the movie was due before the tranche was set to be received. So those are challenges that you need to prepare for, and we need to really anticipate and remedy before we get into a tough spot.
Yeah. I think it's also important to realize that investors aren't in an urgent state like you are. They're not eager to release their funds, because the longer that they have their funds, the more their money is working for them. It's making interest, it's in investments and things like that. As soon as they release it to you, it's no longer making interest. And so they want to delay that as much as possible, which is why sometimes they'll say, oh, I'll give you some now and some later, or I'll do quarterly tranches or whatever it is. Whereas you really need it up front, and that tension is always going to be there. There's also, you might have some money committed because you got a tax incentive approved. That's great, but when are you going to get that? Are you going to lend against it so you can spend during production? Or are you going to wait until it comes in because that changes your cash flow? All of these things can really impact it. So understanding the difference between your budget, the amount that's committed, the amount that you've raised, meaning it's in your bank account and you can spend it, all really important upfront.
Daren, let's see, what are some of the warning signs that we can go through? That's another talking point we brought up as far as, so you finally jump through the hurdles, you're ready to go into production or pre-production. And right now, right after this call, I'm going to scout an office space, warehouse space where we're potentially going to shoot this film. That's going to require a commitment of funds, which I want to be very careful not to, overcommit ourselves to, leasing a space and then suddenly not having those funds come in. So are there warning signs? What can people look for? And you're like, okay, yep, maybe we're putting the cart before the horse here.
Yeah. Having been the line producer on the first 4 movies, as well as a producer on some of them and a UPM on some of them, I handed off a lot of that job on Brotherhood because I said, I can't deal with things like cost reports and cash flow and budgets. I was like, no, I need a separate line producer for Brotherhood and all the movies going forward. But some of the things that we looked at was, okay, if people aren't giving us a budget for their department, that's a sign that maybe we're going to have some issues down the line, because if they're not able to produce a budget, what things are going to cost, they're just going to spend, and then we're going to be chasing them for receipts, and we're not going to know how much they spent until a week after production.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, they went 30% over budget. And that's not when you want to learn those things. So making sure that the key creatives are understanding of their responsibility for their budgets, making sure that you've got a really solid team that's staying on top of money. They know how much we have, how much is expected to come out in the next week, in the next 2 weeks, the next month, etc. And I think one of the warning signs to look for is where are you at with your cash flow compared to your cost report? So your cost report is what your accountants will be generating every week, ideally. It could be more often than that. It could be less frequent than that, but I like weekly cadence to say, look, every week I want a cost report saying, here's what we've spent, here's what's expected to complete the movie based on the budget that we set up at the beginning, and are we over or under, are we ahead or behind? And if you start seeing things like, hey, we need to move some money from the contingency budget into Our development budget, it's like, whoa. Contingency is not available yet. That's for if stuff breaks. That's for if stuff goes wrong. That's for an actor got hurt and they can't shoot for a week and we need to delay 3 days and change our entire schedule around. That's what contingency is for. That's for the stuff you didn't plan on, not for, oh, I thought it was going to be 100 grand, but it's actually 180 grand. You're like, no, that's our whole contingency. Making sure that you're on track with your spend is one of the ways to stay on top of it so you can catch the warning signs like, oh, we're spending our contingency already. Oh, we don't have a budget. Oh, we don't have receipts. Oh, we don't know. Those are the warning signs.
I think we're on independent film, so a lot of times we don't have production accountants for each department and things like that. But the one thing we do have and we have to rely on is communication. And so even with our department heads, we need to communicate very clearly what the budget is. And honestly, your department head needs to put together their budget. You know, they're the expert in their field. They know what a camera is going to cost and the grip truck and the lighting equipment and all of that and what it will take to match your vision as a director or producer. And so they should give you a budget and then stick to that budget. Same with the production designer or your hair, makeup, wardrobe. I was on a film in Romania and we shot this, multi-million dollar film. I had an office right next to my DP and I was just fascinated that he spent so much time on his budget on apartment, like really kind of budgeting it out, each apparatus and light fixture and everything. I learned a ton just watching him put together his budget and going back and forth with the producer about needing more or wanting more or figuring out where to cut. Let your department heads manage their budgets, but then hold them accountable.
Yeah. And it's one thing to set a budget before production, before everybody is hired, before these department heads get their hands on it. I set the budget at $2 million for Brotherhood, and I wanted that to be 1.5 for production and a $500K for marketing and distribution. And it's probably going to be 800,000 more than that because A, I'd never done a musical before. B, dancers are expensive and choreography is expensive. We needed more days than I thought. I thought we could do it in 20 days. We did it in 23. We probably needed 25 or 30 would have been sweet.
Yeah.
It was a big movie, and trying to do a big movie as like we did Faith of Angels on a smaller budget than that, and that was a big movie for the budget we had. It's one thing to go in and say, oh, the budget's $2 million, I'm going to go raise $2 million. But like when reality confronts you, it's like, okay, at that point, you either have to tell your people, no, it's this. You have to cut that budget in half, which means they're unhappy. They don't get to do their best work, or you go raise more money. And so that's what I decided to do on this one is let's go figure it out. We're going to raise more money. We're going to find donors and later stage investors and we'll figure it out. It's important to give yourself the time to not only set a budget up front, but also then adjust as necessary once you start getting into development and pre-production.
Yeah. It can be very, very scary to watch your money being spent and the film not yet being completed. And you're like, okay, well, how are we going to bridge that gap? So that can be a scary thing. I think communication is vital in that. I wanted to look up another talking point as far as raising additional money during production, because it sounds like that's what you're living in that space right now, and that can be nerve-wracking. So some of these things suggestions we talk about raise toward milestones, right? You want to finish principal photography, or reach picture lock, or complete post, or fund delivery, and sometimes it's nice to be able to go to an investor, a potential investor or donor, with those milestones, saying this is what we need for this next step. Are you willing to participate in that step? And that can be exciting to somebody that would want to invest or donate so that they can see those specific results.
That's a big deal. Being able to show results, show progress has been the thing that has helped us a ton because I can stand up in front of people and say, hey, in January, I said we're going to go into production in April. In April, we went into production. In May, we wrapped. In October, we're releasing this movie, With or Without You. So it's get on the train, it's leaving the station, and they can see the progress. It's not like we're waiting for their money. We're saying, here's an opportunity to be a part of something that's in motion. And that helps a ton. When you're trying to raise beforehand, I think it's harder because you're asking people to put a lot of faith and trust in you and your ability to pull it off. I think like when you get to the stage where you and I are, where you've got a number of projects under your belt, it's a little easier because people can point to your previous movies and go, oh, you've delivered 8 movies, you've delivered 4 movies. That's something. But it's still easier when you have these milestones that you've reached and you can point to the results to these people you're talking to.
Another thing with those milestones is they do create this level of urgency, and you mentioned that earlier in this discussion. You live with your movie much, much longer and long before anybody else does. And so when you knock on somebody's door, pick up somebody's phone and, call them and say, we'd like you to participate in this potential, this opportunity, that's the first time that they're hearing about that. So there's that whole, kind of they need time to process and kind of understand. So there's that kind of contradictory goals of saying, how do we get this person excited about the film, but also to the point where they're like ready to write a check now and they see the urgency of it without conveying this desperation. And I think what I saw you do with Brotherhood was really eye-opening because it was this, potential of an opportunity missed is how I interpreted a lot of that.
Yeah.
And so whether it's the first time they're hearing about it, of course it might be, because you have a very compressed timeline and there's a deadline that you're going for. We're doing that right now with The Pearl. The Pearl is ready to go into production, and we're hoping for a few more donations to come in. And even though these donors that we're meeting are, perhaps, existing foundations that have rules and regulations saying, oh, we don't donate to any organization that's not, hasn't been around for 3 years or hasn't already had this level of impact. We try to create that urgency of, this is the impact that this is about to have. We're going into production and we'd love to put your name all over this thing or whatever it is to hopefully create that level of urgency.
Yeah. We just literally did this last night. We had our final preview of Brotherhood. We did another in-person preview where Ross was reading through the script, performing songs live, but we also had about 7-8 clips from the movie that we pulled and interjected those in the reading. So it was about a 90-minute read-through of the script with some of the scenes. And we had 25 people there, and by the end of the night, half a dozen said they'd be interested in donating, and we had a handful that are interested in coming in as investors. Being able to spend time with people and show them, give them an opportunity to feel what it is, because just calling up someone, whether it's a donor or an investor, and saying, hey, we're looking for money, they're going, great, you're no different from anybody else that's calling me every day. But if you can get them in a room for 2 hours, and show them the thing, and they have an emotional experience, and it aligns with their values, whether they're a donor or an investor, that's when you can get people to make decisions in a day or a week or a month, because they feel what you now get. What you've got the whole time, they now get it. You've transferred that to them. But it takes time. It's not an Instagram post or a Facebook ad. It's not a blog post or a newsletter. It's like they need to experience the story in person if they can. So I'm really big on these sort of events, whether it's a table read or a preview or something like that, where you can spend time with people locked in a dark room and say, this is what we're making, this is why it matters. And it gives them a chance to make that decision internally about, oh, this really does align with my values. Oh, I really do want to support this. And I think that's made it a lot easier for us to raise the money that we need to raise.
Yeah, and I've realized I've strayed a little bit from our initial topic. This is like now how to raise money rather than these unexpected costs that are going to come up, which they go hand in hand. But I wanted to come back around a little bit to some of those unexpected costs,
Yeah.
so that we can avoid being in this situation of, oh, we had our budget, but we didn't account for these particular things. One of those things that I think comes up a lot is your cast and the costs of casts. A lot of times we'll make an offer for a talent with the number attached, and that offer will be accepted or at least budgeted. We have this in our budget. But what comes back is all of the support required to bring that talent out there. Everything from your agency fee to just the legal, the contract process, travel, lodging, per diem,
Fringes.
visas, fringes, all of that. And so when you say, hey, can we get you for X amount per week to do this movie and you budget them for 3 weeks, well, there's another 30% probably on top of that required for support. So that's just hopefully a helpful tip to be, hey, make sure that your budget, you have a good line producer and your budget is accurate to the actual needs of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, I think line producer's key, right? And so you need someone who's done it before, ideally. I was really lucky on my first movie. Amy Redford gave me a chance, and I'd never been a line producer before on a feature film. And we came in right at the budget that I expected, but then with music and post-production and some of the other things, it was like, oh, there's extra costs that I hadn't built into the production budget. That's part of the movie budget. So it's, oh, okay. Lesson learned, right? And you move on, and that movie cost more than what we originally budgeted, so they had to raise more money. But yeah, when you are working with a line producer, you want to account for all these unexpected costs like the ones you talked about. But everything from, you've got a contingency in there. It should be 5 or 10% of your total budget in addition, right? So that you've got that buffer. But you never know. We've had more legal fees on this one than I expected, and we've had more. We had some budget savings in some departments and some budget overages in other departments because of loss and damage, because of extra people that needed to be on set, because of whatever. And those are things that you really don't know until you're shooting and you go, oh, the Ronin head isn't working on our big crane. We need to pay for a second rental. We need to do all those things add up. It's typically not one big $50,000 or $100,000 overage that hits you in the back of the head. It's like all these little unmonitored $500, $100, $1,000 charges that creep up, but you do that 100 times and all of a sudden you're at $50,000 or $100,000 that you hadn't expected. So really important to not just be aware as a producer, as a director, as a filmmaker, but to make sure you've got a really experienced line producer. If there's one place that will kind of save your budget, spend a little more to get a really experienced line producer, because they're going to end up saving you money over the long term because they've done it before.
One of the things I like to do is just kind of pie chart it out and say, okay, it's a percentage of the budget. If you say, hey, this is a $2 million film, we have a percentage set aside for development and then a percentage for pre-production. Very large percentage for production and for post. And I try not to, rob Peter to pay Paul between those sections. And so if production is going over, you can't rob post. You just can't. And that's speaking, my background is an editor you're always the last guy at the table going, what's left for me? And when production has gone over and robbed post, suddenly, there's not a lot left. And so you can start solving those problems. Don't just push them to the end of the row or borrow from the end of the line. You solve those problems in the phase that you're in. So you say, hey, if I've got 15% set aside for development, 15% of whatever your budget is, development, and even go up to 20 for pre, then we go, okay, well, I need to do all my camera tests and my initial development with that money. And if we're running out and unable to make payroll, I need to raise money for that now without stealing from production.
I think that's why we spent time talking about what do? You go raise more money. But yeah, it's very important. That money management is a really key characteristic or skill that filmmakers need to have, because it's really easy to burn through $100,000. You'd be really surprised. We were essentially, if you look at the total budget for Brotherhood, if you compressed it all into production, we were spending $100,000 a day. That's a big amount of spend. And so you got to be really careful when it comes to these, especially smaller budgets. If you only have $500K or $1.5 million, that can go really quickly. So staying on top of it, making sure you're aware of what the pitfalls are and the areas, the warning signs that are showing that you might be in a budget problem, really important. So good stuff, Garrett. I think it's important for everybody to listen to this one probably multiple times and really ingrain it in their minds.
Yeah. And it's doable. The good news is it's doable. We can do these, you have a responsible budget, you have a great line producer, a good production accountant, up-to-date reporting, and you'll avoid a lot of these pitfalls that perhaps stop an independent filmmaker from making their next movie.
Awesome. Good stuff. I know you got to run because I was here late, so we do need to wrap up. But good one. I think we'll be back next week. I do want to follow up on your test with the hybrid method. I'm wondering if you've got any of those things back, but that can be a teaser for next week, maybe.
I will paste in our chat the first clip that came back.
Oh man, I can't
And
wait.
then we'll have lots to talk about next week. But I'm very excited about it, and it's all systems go.
Okay. Enjoy the location, Scout. Best of luck.
Thanks,
You're
man.
in active development and almost pre-production for this movie.
I know, it's getting
Can't
scary.
wait.
2 weeks out from prep.
No way. I didn't realize. Here we
Okay.
go.
Thanks, Daren.
Thanks, Garrett. See you.
This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Thanks for joining us. Please share and subscribe for future episodes. Today's episode was edited by Sam Hansen and produced by Three Coin Productions.